Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something that is truly the operating system of a country, yet it often goes unexamined. Its constitution.
Right.
It's the invisible architecture that shapes societies, defines governments, and impacts your daily life in ways you might not even realize, from the roads you drive on to the very ballot box. Okay, let's unpack this.
Indeed. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding these foundational documents is just crucial for grasping how nations function and the fundamental principles that guide them. Our mission with this deep dive is to really demystify what constitutions are, where they come from, how they're classified, and why they profoundly shape our lives. We're drawing directly from quite a stack of insightful source material here to give you a clear, concise, and comprehensive understanding, revealing some surprising facts along the way.
Absolutely. We're taking a deep dive into the fundamental rules that govern nations, revealing surprising facts and connecting the dots so you can quickly become well-informed on this crucial topic. We'll explore the underlying principles, the myriad ways they're formed, and how different constitutional structures impact governance around the globe.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into the mechanics, let's start with a foundational question. What does constitutionalism even mean? Is it just about having a constitution? So let's start with the basics. When we talk about constitutionalism, are we simply talking about a country possessing, a piece of paper called a constitution? What's the real essence of it, beyond just the document?
That's an excellent place to begin, because the nuance here is critical. The concept of constitutionalism actually goes beyond the mere existence of a document. It encompasses two core ideas.
Okay.
First, it's about rule in accordance with the Constitution, meaning a government actually sticks to the explicit rules set out in its foundational document. But perhaps even more profoundly, it's about the principle that government authority is derived from and limited by a constitution. The second part is vital. It means the government isn't all-powerful. Its authority comes from the people, fundamentally, and is restricted by a higher law, preventing arbitrary rule. It's the very idea of limited government.
That makes perfect sense. So it's about the spirit of the law, the underlying commitment to defined and limited power, not just the letter.
Exactly.
If constitutionalism is that guiding principle, what then is the Constitution itself? What are we talking about when we say a country has a constitution?
Well, think of a constitution as the fundamental blueprint for a nation. It's a comprehensive set of rules and principles that establishes the framework for how a country or organization is governed.
The blueprint.
Okay. Or you could say it's the master set of rules and regulations used in managing the affairs of the state. This document, or sometimes a set of documents and traditions, spells out the structure of the government, the powers of its different branches, and crucially, the rights and responsibilities of its citizens. It's the ultimate rulebook, really, designed to endure through time, shaping the very character of a nation.
That blueprint analogy really works. And when you think about it, this blueprint profoundly affects your daily life.
It really does.
Imagine something as fundamental as your voting rights, or even something as seemingly mundane as, the quality of the roads you drive on. Those are often tied back to the framework established by a country's constitution. It sets the stage for everything, defining the boundaries within which all other laws and policies must operate. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. You might assume a constitution is always created in one grand, sweeping moment where a group of people gather and, draft it from scratch.
Right, the Founding Fathers moment.
Exactly. But our sources reveal that constitutions have many different sources. It's rarely a single moment of creation. More often, it's an accumulation of various legal and historical foundations. Let's explore the 6 surprising places a constitution can actually originate from and what that tells us about a nation's character.
That's a crucial distinction because these origins often reflect the unique history and evolutionary journey of a nation's legal system. The first fascinating source we encounter is the customary source.
Customary.
Yeah. These refer to legal customs, traditions, and practices that have evolved over time and are recognized as binding within a particular society or community. In the constitutional context, this means unwritten rules, principles, and norms that have been followed and respected for generations, forming the bedrock of political behavior.
So these aren't written down anywhere, but they still hold legal weight. That's quite a paradox. How do these unwritten traditions actually become binding?
Well, it's through a combination of things. Consistent practice over a long period, widespread societal acceptance, the belief that this is how things should be done, and, critically, through repeated judicial and political recognition.
Ah, okay.
If a practice has been observed for long enough, with the expectation that it should be followed, it sort of gains a de facto legal force.
And what does this imply about the history and culture of a nation if its foundational rules are rooted in these unwritten customs? It suggests a deep historical consciousness, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It implies that nations with strong customary sources for their constitutions, like the UK for instance, often have very deep historical roots, and their governance is profoundly intertwined with their cultural identity and long-standing societal norms. It highlights a living, evolving aspect of their legal framework, one that's grown organically over centuries, really. Moving on to our second source, we have judicial precedents or case laws.
Right. Courts making decisions.
Exactly. This refers to the principle of stare decisis, which basically means to stand by things decided. In essence, it's about following previously established court decisions or rulings when interpreting and applying the law.
Stare decisis. Got it.
In constitutional law, this means that decisions made by higher courts set precedents that are binding on lower courts, and these interpretations can significantly shape the meaning and application of constitutional provisions over time.
So essentially, court interpretations can clarify, adapt, and even implicitly create constitutional law over time. This really shows a living, evolving aspect of a constitution. It's not just static text, but something that breathes and changes with each new legal challenge.
It does, it breathes.
What does this mean for the power of the judiciary, then?
It means the judiciary holds immense power, acting as a dynamic force in constitutional development. Through their interpretations, judges clarify ambiguities. They adapt the Constitution to new societal challenges, like, say, technological advancements or evolving social norms, and effectively expand or narrow the scope of constitutional rights and governmental powers. This is precisely why judicial appointments are so intensely significant in many countries. A single ruling can literally redefine the meaning of a nation's foundational rules, sometimes for generations, making the interpretation itself a powerful source of constitutional law. Our third source is the more direct and perhaps most intuitive one, the statutory source, or parliamentary acts.
Ah, okay, so laws passed by the legislature.
Exactly. These are laws formally enacted by the legislative branch of government. In the constitutional context, this can include specific constitutional amendments, comprehensive statutes, or parliamentary acts that have been specifically passed to govern constitutional matters.
So this is the most straightforward one, where the legislature actively passes laws that directly become part of the Constitution or amend it. It's like updating the blueprint piece by piece rather than waiting for a grand overhaul.
Precisely. Some countries, instead of embarking on a massive constitutional convention every few decades, choose to update their constitution incrementally through specific acts of parliament. This method allows for more gradual evolution and integration of changes, often addressing specific issues as they arise and reflecting societal shifts in a more controlled legislative manner. Next, we explore the authoritative source, or works of renowned authors. This is a fascinating category.
Renowned authors, how does that work?
It refers to documents or texts by highly respected legal scholars, constitutional experts, or prominent legal treatises that hold significant credibility and carry substantial weight in the interpretation and understanding of a country's constitution.
That's quite fascinating. It implies that a constitution isn't just a document, but also a body of intellectual thought. How can scholarly writings actually hold significant weight in legal interpretation? Does the judge just read a book and decide that's the law, or is there a more nuanced process?
Well, it's more nuanced, not directly in the sense of making a ruling because a book said so.
Right.
Rather, these writings provide deep analysis, historical context, philosophical underpinnings, and reasoned arguments that profoundly influence judges, lawyers, and policymakers. They help clarify complex constitutional concepts, identify underlying principles that might not be immediately obvious, and inform the understanding of constitutional provisions that were drafted maybe centuries ago.
So they shape the thinking around the law.
Exactly. Their authority stems from the intellectual rigor and the enduring influence of the scholars who produced them, forming a vital part of the intellectual foundation and ongoing academic engagement with constitutional law.
Yeah.
They shape the thinking about the law. Fifth, we consider previous constitutions.
Okay, so older versions.
Yes. These refer to earlier versions of a country's constitution that may have been replaced or amended. While superseded by a new document, these older texts may still be relevant in the legal system, particularly if certain provisions or fundamental principles from the previous constitutions are retained or incorporated into the current one.
So even if a constitution is declared new, elements of the old one can persist, acting as historical DNA.
Kind of like that, yeah.
This really demonstrates continuity and evolution over a complete rupture, showing how a nation often builds on its past rather than completely erasing it.
It does. It acknowledges that constitutional development is rarely a clean slate. It's often a continuous process, not a series of isolated events. Previous constitutions can provide invaluable historical context, illuminate the original intent behind certain provisions, or even directly influence current interpretations if their core principles were consciously carried forward. It speaks to the enduring legacy of a nation's legal journey. Finally, we come to decrees, also known as martial laws.
Decrees. That sounds a bit different.
It is. These are formal orders issued by the head of a country's government, often carrying significant legal weight, especially invoked during emergencies or periods where the executive leader needs to consolidate authority, such as during military rule.
Right.
In such exceptional circumstances, decrees may be used not only to create new laws, but also to interpret, suspend, or even alter aspects of the country's existing constitutional framework.
This one sounds a bit more immediate and, frankly, often less democratic, focusing on rapid centralized action.
That's fair.
It highlights how emergency powers can directly impact the Constitution, shifting power dynamics in real time, sometimes quite dramatically.
That's a crucial observation. Decrees represent a more centralized and often less deliberative or consultative source of constitutional power. While sometimes deemed necessary during periods of acute crisis for rapid decision-making, their pervasive or prolonged use can raise serious questions about checks and balances, the rule of law, and the long-term impact on constitutional norms. They underscore how extraordinary circumstances can, momentarily or even permanently, alter the practical application and very structure of a constitution, sometimes, for the worse.
Knowing where a constitution comes from is one thing, but what factors actually promote constitutionalism, making sure the government truly stays within its limits and respects the principles enshrined in the Constitution? Our sources highlight 7 key elements that help ensure the government truly adheres to its foundational rules. This is about more than just a document. It's about the ecosystem around it.
Precisely. This is where we move from the document itself to the surrounding environment and the active ingredients that allow the principles of limited government and the rule of law to truly thrive. The first and arguably most crucial factor is an independent judiciary.
Right, we touched on judicial power earlier.
Yes, and independence is key. This means judges can interpret and enforce the Constitution fairly without influence or pressure from the other branches of government or political actors.
Why is that independence so vital for protecting individual rights and freedoms? It sounds like it's the ultimate check on power, the final arbiter.
It absolutely is, and for good reason. Without political pressure or interference, judges can rule based solely on the law and the Constitution, even if their decisions go against the wishes of the executive or legislative branches or even popular opinion sometimes. This independence empowers them to protect citizens' rights from potential governmental overreach. They act as the ultimate guardian of the Constitution, ensuring that its boundaries are respected and that the government, too, remains accountable to its supreme law. The second factor is having a strong and well-designed Constitution itself. It's not just about having a document, but having a good one, a clear and robust blueprint.
Right.
Our sources emphasize it should clearly outline the structure of government, the separation of powers, the protection of individual rights, and mechanisms for checks and balances.
So it's the blueprint, but it needs to be an incredibly precise and robust blueprint. How does that clarity in the design prevent abuse of power?
Clarity is paramount because ambiguity can be exploited. A well-designed constitution minimizes areas of gray, explicitly defining powers and, crucially, limitations.
Okay.
When the rules are clear, it becomes significantly harder for any branch or individual to overstep their authority. It provides a solid, undeniable foundation for upholding constitutional principles by making the boundaries of power evident and undeniable to everyone, creating both transparency and accountability. Third, and fundamental to any just and stable society, is the rule of law.
Oh, yes, the rule of law.
This principle ensures that everyone, including the highest government officials, is subject to and accountable under the law. It promotes fairness, equality, and prevents arbitrary rule by ensuring laws are applied consistently, impartially, and predictably to all, regardless of status.
That's the idea that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law.
Exactly.
It really is the cornerstone of a just society. Imagine a country without it, where rulers could just make up rules or ignore them as they go along. The very notion of trust in government would collapse.
It would completely collapse. It's the assurance that justice is predictable and universal, not contingent on who you are or who you know. This bedrock principle creates a level playing field, which is utterly essential for both individual liberty and stable governance, providing citizens with a sense of security and fairness. Fourth is the protection of human rights and civil liberties. This involves ensuring the Constitution explicitly guarantees fundamental rights and freedoms for individuals, such as freedom of speech, religion, and assembly, which are protected and, critically, cannot be infringed upon by the government.
How does explicitly codifying these rights empower citizens against potential state overreach? Is it just about saying you have rights, or is there a deeper legal mechanism at play?
Oh, it's far more than just a declaration. It's about codifying these rights as supreme law.
Right.
When these rights are explicitly protected in the Constitution, citizens have a direct, strong legal basis to challenge any government actions that infringe upon them. It provides a formidable shield against state overreach, empowering individuals to assert their freedoms and hold the government accountable for respecting those fundamental liberties in a court of law. Fifth, we have educated and engaged citizens. Our sources state that an informed and engaged citizenry is arguably the most crucial active ingredient for promoting constitutionalism.
Active ingredient, I like that.
Yeah. Citizens who truly understand their rights, the workings of government, and the importance of constitutional principles are far more likely to demand accountability, participate robustly in the democratic process, and actively safeguard constitutional values.
This is a critical dynamic factor, isn't it? A constitution, however well designed on paper, is only as strong as the people who uphold it.
That's it.
This means you, the listener, your understanding and engagement are not just important, but incredibly crucial to its continued success.
You've hit on the essence. Citizens are not just passive recipients of constitutional protections. They are the active participants and ultimate guardians of its maintenance. An aware and active populace provides the necessary vigilance and pressure to ensure that the government truly adheres to its constitutional limits and responsibilities, acting as a perpetual check. The sixth factor is a strong civil society.
Civil society, so like NGOs and advocacy groups.
Exactly. This broad term includes non-governmental organizations, advocacy groups, and various forms of citizen participation outside formal government structures. They play a vital role in promoting constitutionalism by acting as a watchdog, holding the government accountable, raising awareness about constitutional rights and responsibilities, and advocating for the protection of civil liberties.
This sounds like the collective voice of the people organized independently of the state, keeping a watchful eye on things. How effective are these groups in practice?
They are remarkably effective. Civil society groups can amplify individual voices, conduct independent research and investigations into government actions, mobilize public opinion, and exert significant influence on policy to ensure that constitutional norms are respected. They add a crucial non-governmental layer of checks and balances, acting as critical intermediaries between the state and the individual citizen, often bringing issues to light that might otherwise go unaddressed. Finally, number 7, we have free and fair elections. These are regular elections that are conducted without bias, manipulation, or intimidation.
Absolutely essential.
Crucial. They are crucial for promoting constitutionalism because they ensure that leaders are chosen by the people, truly uphold the will of the electorate, and allow for peaceful, legitimate transitions of power. This reinforces the core legitimacy of the entire constitutional system.
This is the direct mechanism for people to exercise their sovereignty, isn't it? It connects the government back to the consent of the governed in the most tangible way.
Absolutely. It is the ultimate expression of popular sovereignty in a democratic constitutional system. Free and fair elections provide undeniable legitimacy to the government, ensuring that its power derives directly from the people. They also provide a peaceful, institutionalized, and predictable way for citizens to change their leadership if they feel their constitutional values are not being upheld, preventing the need for more drastic, less stable forms of change.
Okay.
So these 7 factors collectively create an environment that truly upholds the principles of constitutionalism, moving it beyond mere words on paper.
So what does this all mean when we look at the world stage? Constitutions aren't one size fits all. Our source material presents several fascinating ways to classify them, showing the incredible diversity in how nations choose to govern themselves. It's like different operating systems for different types of computers, each with its own advantages and inherent trade-offs.
That's a great analogy. These classifications provide a broad framework for categorizing constitutions based on their key characteristics. And it's important to remember that countries may have constitutions that blend features from multiple classifications, creating unique combinations.
It's not always neat boxes.
Not at all. Let's start with one of the most fundamental distinctions: written versus unwritten constitutions.
Okay, written versus unwritten. It sounds straightforward. Either it's typed on a page or it isn't. But I suspect there's much more to it than that, especially in terms of practical implications.
There truly is. A written constitution is essentially a single, comprehensive document that contains the essential laws of a country, outlining its key rules, structures, and rights in one codified text. Think of countries like the United States, India, or Germany. The primary benefit here is the inherent clarity and certainty it offers. Everyone can consult a single source to understand the framework of government, the powers it holds, and the rights it guarantees its citizens. This clarity also tends to promote greater stability, as the foundational rules are harder to change, preventing frequent alterations based on fleeting political interests.
So a clear, stable bedrock. But surely there are downsides to being so rigid and explicitly defined, especially in a world that's constantly changing.
Indeed. The main trade-off with a written constitution is its inherent rigidity and the difficulty of amendment. While stability is a strength, it can make it challenging for a nation to adapt quickly to unforeseen circumstances or rapidly evolving societal values.
Right, getting stuck.
Exactly. The amendment process can be cumbersome, requiring significant consensus, which can lead to policy stagnation or even constitutional deadlock. Furthermore, while they offer clarity, the very act of putting everything into a single document can lead to interpretation challenges. Broad language often requires extensive judicial interpretation, leading to ongoing debates and even conflicts over meaning, which then, as we discussed, become a source of constitutional law themselves. Now, in contrast, an unwritten constitution is not contained in a single document. Instead, it's a living, evolving mosaic based on a combination of statutes, judicial decisions, historical documents, and deeply ingrained constitutional conventions. The United Kingdom is the prime example here.
Or the UK.
The core strength of an unwritten constitution lies in its remarkable flexibility and adaptability. Because it's not bound by a single text, it can evolve organically over time, reflecting societal changes without the need for formal, often difficult amendment processes. It can incorporate long-standing customs and precedents that provide a profound sense of continuity and stability rooted in centuries of practice.
So, it can simply breathe and grow with the nation. But what about the trade-offs on the other side? Does that fluidity come at a cost?
It absolutely does. The most significant demerit of an unwritten constitution is a potential lack of clarity and certainty. Being based on conventions and traditions, which can sometimes be unstated or ambiguous, it can make it difficult for citizens and even officials to know the exact rules and boundaries of power.
Yeah, I can see that.
This fluidity can also lead to inconsistency and potential instability, as political practice can be influenced by convenience rather than strict legal principles. Crucially, without a codified document, the protection of fundamental rights can be weaker. Rights may not be as clearly defined or guaranteed, making them harder for citizens to assert definitively against potential government overreach and potentially allowing for concentration of power if conventions are ignored.
So when you consider these two fundamental approaches, it really highlights a nation's choice between the clarity and stability of a fixed document versus the organic adaptability of evolving tradition. Each offers a distinct path with unique challenges.
Precisely. The key differences really boil down to their form: clarity versus ambiguity, their flexibility versus rigidity, their legal status, visibility, and the amendment process. A written constitution tends to be a formal, specific, relatively rigid, supreme, visible document with a formal amendment process. An unwritten constitution is based on traditions, often less clear, highly flexible, relies on informal norms, is less visible, and changes informally through practice. This brings us to our next classification, which directly relates to the ease or difficulty of changing the Constitution: rigid versus flexible constitutions.
Okay, rigid versus flexible. So a rigid constitution is one that has more stringent, often complex amendment procedures, making it difficult to make changes.
That's right.
And a flexible constitution can be amended through regular legislative processes, often requiring only a simple majority. I imagine there's a strong correlation here with written versus unwritten, right? Written constitutions tend to be rigid and unwritten ones flexible.
That's a general tendency, yes,
Right.
but it's not a perfect one-to-one correlation, which is important to note. Some written constitutions can be designed to be relatively flexible, and conversely, some unwritten constitutional systems can have very strong, difficult-to-change conventions. The
Ah,
key strength of a rigid constitution lies in its promise of stability and predictability. Because it's so difficult to alter, it provides clear, enduring rules that foster predictability for both citizens and institutions, protecting against rash political decisions or the whims of a momentary majority. This rigidity also offers a higher degree of protection for fundamental rights, as it's harder for a government to unilaterally strip away enshrined liberties.
that makes sense. It locks in those foundational protections. But what are the drawbacks of that rigidity? It seems like it could make a nation slow to respond to rapid changes.
That's its primary challenge. The most significant demerit of a rigid constitution is its inherent lack of flexibility. It restricts a nation's ability to respond quickly and efficiently to rapidly changing circumstances, unforeseen crises, or emerging societal challenges. This can lead to outdated provisions that no longer serve the public good, potentially hindering progress. Furthermore, the difficulty of amendment can sometimes lead to increased judicial activism, where courts play a bigger role in interpreting old language to fit new realities, leading to concerns about democratic accountability if judges are perceived as legislating from the bench. Now, for flexible constitutions, their primary strength is, as the name suggests, their adaptability to change. They can evolve far more easily and quickly, allowing prompt responses to new societal needs, technological advancements, or global shifts.
So they're more responsive.
Exactly. This inherent ease of amendment allows them to better reflect current societal values and aspirations, ensuring the governing framework remains relevant and responsive to the populace.
But all that flexibility must come with its own set of problems. If it's too easy to change, doesn't that risk instability?
It absolutely does. The most significant demerit of flexible constitutions is their potential for instability. Because they are more prone to frequent changes, they can lead to political uncertainty, making long-term planning more challenging for policymakers and potentially eroding public trust if foundational rules seem to shift too often.
Yeah, it makes sense.
This ease of change also carries a risk of arbitrary changes by those in power, potentially undermining fundamental democratic principles or even weakening the protection of rights if safeguards can be easily removed. It's a constant balancing act between responsiveness and foundational integrity.
A real trade-off.
Definitely. The key differences between flexible and rigid constitutions fundamentally lie in their amendment process, their resulting stability versus adaptability, their clarity and specificity, the level of protection they offer for rights, and how the Constitution is viewed in terms of its supreme importance. Our third classification relates to the distribution of power within a state, unitary versus federal constitutions.
Okay, unitary versus federal. So, a unitary constitution is where power is largely centralized at the national level, with the central government making most decisions and local or regional governments having limited, often delegated, autonomy. France is a good example here, right, where Paris holds significant power over the regions.
Correct. And a federal constitution fundamentally divides power between the central or national government and various regional entities, such as states or provinces. Both levels of government have their own distinct responsibilities and authority within their respective areas. The United States, Canada, and Germany are classic examples.
Right, like states' rights in the U.S.
Exactly. This approach is common in larger, often more diverse countries, seeking to balance national unity with regional distinctiveness.
What are the merits of a unitary system where power is more consolidated? What makes it appealing for some nations?
Well, the primary merit of a unitary constitution is its clear power structure and resulting efficiency. A central government with overriding authority over local governments promotes straightforward decision-making and uniformity across the nation.
Simpler, maybe.
In a way, this concentration of power facilitates easier policy implementation nationwide and can lead to quick decision-making, as there's no need for extensive negotiation among multiple levels of government. It also often fosters a stronger sense of national unity, emphasizing a common identity and shared interests.
That seems very streamlined. But what are the drawbacks of that centralization? Does it come at the expense of local needs?
It often does. The main demerit is a significant lack of local autonomy. Local governments have limited decision-making power, which can lead to a neglect of regional diversity and specific local needs. Centralized governance can make it difficult to address unique issues efficiently at the local level, and resources might disproportionately concentrate in the capital, exacerbating regional disparities.
Hmm.
Furthermore, this concentration of power can lead to limited checks and balances, potentially increasing the risk of abuse of power or a disregard for minority rights, as local voices may be diluted.
What about the federal system with its shared power and multiple layers? What are its strengths and weaknesses?
For federal constitutions, a key strength is power sharing and the accompanying regional autonomy. It distributes power, allowing regional governments to address specific local issues more effectively and tailor policies to diverse regional identities.
Good for diverse countries.
Very much so. This flexibility and diversity can also accommodate heterogeneous populations, promoting peaceful coexistence among diverse groups within a single nation. The division of powers inherently provides an additional layer of checks and balances, preventing the abuse of power by either the central or regional governments.
And the demerits of that complexity, it sounds like it could be prone to internal conflict or just slow things down.
You're right. The complexity is its primary demerit. It can lead to a potential for disputes between the central and regional governments over the division of powers, which can hinder decision-making and create gridlock.
Yeah, arguments between levels of government.
Exactly. The requirement for coordination among multiple layers of government can also lead to significant coordination challenges and delays in policy implementation. This complex governance structure can also create administrative challenges and bureaucracy. There's also the risk of inequality among regions if resources or influence are not evenly distributed. And in diverse nations, it can even amplify regional identities to a point where it fosters potential for secessionist movements if disagreements over sovereignty escalate.
Wow. Okay, so big potential downsides too.
Absolutely. The key differences between unitary and federal constitutions are evident in their power distribution, the autonomy of subnational entities, the division of legislative powers, their amendment process, often more distributed in federal systems, and where constitutional supremacy ultimately resides, either centrally or with the Constitution itself as the supreme arbiter of both levels. Next, we classify constitutions based on the nature of their head of state, monarchical versus republican constitutions.
Okay, monarchy versus republic. So, a monarchical constitution establishes a monarchy with a hereditary monarch as the head of state, whose role can range from purely symbolic to quite influential.
That's it.
And a republican constitution sets up a republic where the head of state is usually an elected president or a collective body, focusing on popular participation and accountability.
Correct. The core merit often cited for a monarchical constitution is its provision of stability and continuity. A hereditary monarch can prevent frequent leadership changes and serve as a deeply ingrained symbol of national identity, providing a unifying figure above partisan politics.
The symbol of unity.
Yes. This non-political head of state can embody national pride and cultural heritage, and the predetermined succession provides for a remarkably smooth and peaceful transition of power.
That sense of continuity seems very powerful. But what about the downsides of that system, particularly from a democratic standpoint?
Well, the significant demerit is a fundamental lack of democratic accountability. The monarch holds their position by birthright, not by popular election, which can lead to concerns about unchecked power, even if their role is largely ceremonial.
Right, not elected.
Their influence on actual decision-making is often limited, as the real executive power rests elsewhere. There's also the inherent inequality and privilege associated with a royal family, which can be at odds with modern democratic ideals, and the system may struggle with modernization challenges, finding it difficult to adapt to evolving societal values like gender equality or diversity. For Republican constitutions, the primary merit is their emphasis on democratic representation. Power fundamentally rests with the people, exercised through elected representatives, fostering a direct link to government.
Power from the people.
Exactly. This leads to greater accountability of elected leaders, who must face regular elections, promoting transparency and responsiveness to the public. These constitutions also often include a strong separation of powers to prevent the concentration of power and actively promote principles of equality, justice, and individual rights.
And their weaknesses. All that democratic involvement must come with its own set of challenges.
Indeed. The demerits include a potential for political instability. Republican systems can face challenges during frequent elections or transitional phases, leading to periods of uncertainty. The presence of multiple political parties can lead to intense partisan politics, divisiveness, and challenges in achieving consensus, potentially resulting in executive gridlock if different branches of government are at odds.
Gridlock, yeah, we hear about that.
There's also a vulnerability to populist influences, where leaders might prioritize short-term public opinion over long-term national interest, and the electoral processes themselves can be expensive and time-consuming, diverting significant resources and attention. The key differences here are centered around the head of state, whether it's a hereditary monarch or an elected individual, the ultimate source of legitimacy lineage versus popular consent, the actual role of the head of state, the method of succession, and, crucially, their historical and cultural significance, which often reflects a nation's journey towards self-governance.
Our sources then delve into another crucial classification, one that speaks to the very heart of how power is exercised: democratic versus authoritarian constitutions. Now, it's important to remember we're just relaying the information presented here, describing characteristics and potential outcomes as laid out in the source material, not endorsing any particular viewpoint. Our aim is to help you understand the ideas contained within these constitutional frameworks.
Exactly. It's about understanding the concepts. A democratic constitution is characterized by its focus on safeguarding individual rights, upholding the rule of law, and ensuring regular, free, and fair elections. It actively promotes citizen participation in governance and maintains robust checks and balances to prevent abuses of power. Countries like Germany and Canada are prime examples provided in our sources, where the individual citizen's voice and rights are central. On the other hand, an authoritarian constitution centralizes power in the hands of a single authority or a ruling party. It often severely limits political freedoms, curtails civil liberties, and concentrates decision-making in the executive branch, with little to no checks on its power. Examples given are North Korea and China, where the state's power is paramount.
Okay, let's look at the merits as presented in our sources of a democratic constitution first. What are the key advantages of a system built on individual rights and participation?
The primary merits listed are the robust protection of individual rights and freedoms. These constitutions explicitly protect citizens' liberties, often through a comprehensive Bill of Rights, ensuring equality under the law and preventing arbitrary state interference. They firmly uphold the rule of law, ensuring that laws apply equally to all, fostering justice and preventing arbitrary governance. Moreover, they promote significant accountability and transparency through regular elections and an independent judiciary, which holds officials responsible for their actions. This emphasis on citizen participation also strengthens the legitimacy of the government by tying it directly to the will of the people.
But what are the inherent challenges or drawbacks with that democratic approach, despite its clear advantages?
Well, the main challenges lie in its operational aspects. Decision-making can be slower, as democratic processes require consensus building, debate, and compromise, especially in complex legislative matters.
Can be messy.
Can be very messy. There's also a risk of populism, where leaders might manipulate public opinion or prioritize short-term political gains over long-term societal benefits. Separation of powers, while a safeguard, can also lead to political gridlock if different branches struggle to cooperate, potentially hindering national progress. There's also the delicate balance of majority rule versus minority rights, where the will of the majority must not suppress the legitimate interests of minority groups.
Okay, now switching to the authoritarian constitution, what are its presented merits, despite the clear concerns about rights? What makes this system appealing to some, according to the sources?
Our sources highlight that the primary merit often claimed for an authoritarian system is its efficient decision-making. Concentrated power allows for rapid and decisive action, particularly during crises or when implementing large-scale national projects.
Getting things done quickly.
That's the idea. This centralization can also lead to remarkable stability and continuity, with fewer political disruptions and clear, unchallenged leadership. Such systems often boast a strong leadership capable of executing long-term plans without significant internal opposition, and can exert strong economic control, potentially enabling rapid national development by directing resources without typical market or political constraints. Finally, they often prioritize and achieve very high levels of law and order through stringent state control over society.
And the demerits for authoritarian constitutions, these seem particularly stark in contrast to democratic ideals.
They are indeed. The most glaring demerits include the fundamental suppression of individual rights and freedoms. Dissent is often not tolerated, and citizens have limited or no say in governance. This leads to a severe lack of accountability for those in power, which can easily result in corruption and widespread abuse. The limited citizen participation naturally leads to public disillusionment and a lack of genuine ownership of national direction. These systems are frequently associated with severe human rights violations, including repression, censorship, and arbitrary detention. Furthermore, their centralized authority often creates resistance to change, making adaptation difficult and potentially leading to long-term stagnation or a failure to address underlying societal grievances, which can ultimately culminate in potential for unrest as suppressed freedoms inevitably seek an outlet.
Right.
This comparison truly highlights the core values a constitution can uphold, whether it prioritizes individual liberty, popular participation, and checks on power, or centralized control, perceived efficiency, and strict social order. It's a fundamental divergence in foundational principles.
So we've talked about written rules, formal structures, and even specific examples of codified rights. But what about the unwritten rules that silently, powerfully shape how a country operates? Our sources explore the fascinating and often overlooked role of customs and conventions.
This is a vital aspect of constitutionalism, because a constitution isn't just a dry legal document, it's intricately woven into a broader cultural and historical fabric. Our sources define customs as traditional practices that have been passed down from generation to generation within a society, reflecting deeply held cultural values, beliefs, and norms. Think of foundational rituals, ceremonies, or deeply ingrained societal behaviors. Conventions, on the other hand, are unwritten but widely accepted rules that guide how we behave in various situations, particularly in social, political, or professional settings.
Okay, so how things are done.
Exactly. They provide a common understanding of expected behavior, establishing informal norms without the need for explicit, codified instructions or laws. In the constitutional context, these are the unwritten understandings that guide how political actors interact and how government functions, even when not legally compelled.
So, customs are more about cultural traditions that permeate society, and conventions are more about accepted, informal ways of doing things within governance, even if they aren't explicitly written into law. How important are these unwritten rules in the grand scheme of a nation's governance? Do they actually hold sway?
Oh, they hold profound sway, often providing the grease for the formal machinery of government. Our sources highlight several crucial points regarding their importance.
Okay.
Firstly, they act as an informal layer of the rule of law, providing unwritten guidelines that complement formal laws, promoting consistency and predictability in areas where the written law might be silent. Secondly, they contribute significantly to social stability by creating a shared understanding of appropriate behavior, helping to resolve conflicts and promote peaceful coexistence without constant explicit regulation. Thirdly, when customs and conventions are deeply aligned with societal values, they foster legitimacy and trust between citizens and their government, strengthening the overall governance framework by making it feel authentic and rooted in shared history. Fourthly, they contribute to governance efficiency. They establish informal shortcuts and accepted procedures that streamline decision-making and day-to-day administration, allowing things to happen smoothly, even without explicit instructions for every contingency.
Little efficiencies.
Exactly. Finally, they can provide avenues for public participation by integrating traditional community assemblies or dispute resolution mechanisms into the broader governance structure. And by acknowledging them, governments demonstrate cultural sensitivity, ensuring practices are responsive to different communities within a diverse nation.
This truly demonstrates how a constitution, even a meticulously written one, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a living, breathing system shaped by culture, tradition, and the unwritten expectations that bind people and their government together. It's a powerful reminder that governance is as much about human behavior as it is about legal text.
Well said.
To make these abstract concepts concrete, let's look at a real-world example of how these principles are woven into a nation's fabric. Ghana's 1992 Constitution. Our sources highlight several fundamental principles enshrined within it, providing a fantastic illustration of these ideas in practice.
Yes, Ghana's 1992 Constitution serves as a powerful and illustrative model of a well-designed democratic framework. It clearly enshrines several basic principles of government. Foremost is the sovereignty of the people, clearly stating that all power resides in the people, who then exercise it through elected representatives.
Okay.
It firmly establishes a clear separation of powers among the executive, legislature, and judiciary, ensuring robust checks and balances. The rule of law is paramount, mandating that everyone, including officials, is subject to and must abide by the law, ensuring non-arbitrary decisions. And critically, it mandates respect for fundamental human rights, explicitly guaranteeing the protection of rights like speech, assembly, religion, and freedom from torture.
How do these principles, specifically laid out in Ghana's constitution, reflect the broader concepts of constitutionalism we've discussed earlier, particularly the idea of limited government and protecting citizens. It sounds like a textbook example coming to life.
It truly is. The emphasis on the sovereignty of the people and democratic governance directly supports the idea that government authority is legitimately derived from the people.
Right.
The robust separation of powers and comprehensive accountability mechanisms ensure that this authority is not only derived, but also rigorously limited and consistently checked, preventing any one branch from becoming dominant. And the explicit respect for human rights, coupled with the unwavering commitment to the rule of law, are the absolute cornerstones of constitutionalism, providing the strongest possible shield for individual freedoms against potential state overreach. Ghana's constitution exemplifies a well-designed blueprint for upholding these very values, demonstrating how a nation builds a foundation for liberty and accountability. Furthermore, Ghana's 1992 constitution goes into extensive detail on the features of fundamental human rights. These are not just broad statements, but specific, enforceable protections, providing tangible examples of how a constitution safeguards its citizens.
So getting really specific.
Very specific. For instance, it explicitly guarantees equality and non-discrimination, ensuring everyone is treated fairly regardless of race, gender, religion, ethnicity, or disability. The right to life is affirmed, prohibiting arbitrary deprivation of life, and robust freedom of speech and expression is enshrined, ensuring the right to freely express thoughts without fear of punishment. It also includes freedom of religion and belief, allowing individuals to practice their faith alone or with others. The right to personal liberty, protecting against unlawful arrest, detention, or imprisonment, and crucial protection against torture and cruel treatment, explicitly prohibiting cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment.
These are really core protections.
Absolutely. A cornerstone of justice, the right to fair trial, guarantees an impartial trial, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and access to legal representation. Additionally, the right to privacy protects private lives, homes, and correspondence from unwarranted intrusion, and the right to education ensures access to education for all citizens, with the government explicitly responsible for gradually filling basic education for everyone.
Education, too. Interesting.
Yes, and finally, it recognizes socioeconomic rights related to work, healthcare, housing, and Social Security, acknowledging the government's progressive responsibility to fulfill these essential needs over time.
This truly provides a tangible, real-world example of the protection of rights merit we discussed earlier. It's not just a theoretical concept, it's explicitly written into the core document, giving Ghanaian citizens a clear legal basis to claim and defend these rights in practice. It showcases the transformative power of a well-crafted constitution.
It really does.
So, if a country decides it needs a completely new constitutional blueprint or a significant overhaul, how does that actually happen? It's not just a spontaneous event or a simple decree. Our sources outline a structured process involving 8 general steps for creating a constitution, a veritable grand project of nation building.
It truly is a monumental undertaking that requires significant foresight, deliberation, and broad participation. The first crucial step is to establish a constituent assembly or constitutional convention.
Okay, get the group together.
Basically, yes. This is a specially formed body of representatives, either elected specifically for this purpose or appointed from various sectors of society. It typically comprises legal experts, seasoned politicians, distinguished scholars, community leaders, and other relevant stakeholders from across the societal spectrum.
Why is broad and diverse representation so important at this initial stage, especially given the monumental task ahead?
Well, broad representation is vital because the Constitution is designed to serve all segments of a society, not just a dominant group, including diverse voices from different political views, ethnic groups, religious affiliations, geographical regions, and professional backgrounds, ensures that the drafting process is truly inclusive.
Makes sense.
This approach helps to build legitimacy and consensus around the resulting document, making it a true reflection of the collective needs and aspirations of the entire population, thereby enhancing its long-term acceptance and stability. Without this, the Constitution risks being seen as imposed rather than agreed upon. The second step is to conduct extensive research and gather information. Before any drafting begins, the Assembly engages in exhaustive research. This involves deep dives into constitutional principles from around the world, comparative studies of constitutions from other nations, and a thorough analysis of their own country's specific historical context, current needs, and future aspirations. They consult with a wide array of legal and constitutional experts to inform their foundational decisions. Third, and absolutely critical for a democratic constitution, is public consultation and participation.
getting the public involved.
Critically important. This is where the Constituent Assembly actively seeks input from the general public through various transparent mechanisms. This might include nationwide public hearings, town hall meetings in diverse communities, citizen assemblies, online surveys, and open calls for submissions. This allows ordinary citizens to express their views, concerns, and aspirations regarding what the new Constitution should embody.
This connects directly back to our earlier discussion on educated and engaged citizens and public awareness and participation as crucial pillars of constitutionalism, doesn't it? It's essential for ensuring the Constitution has popular buy-in and reflects the will of the people.
Precisely. Public participation is critical because it grounds the Constitution in the authentic will of the people. It fosters a profound sense of ownership and significantly increases the likelihood of its long-term acceptance and enduring stability. Without this vital engagement, the document risks being perceived as an elite creation imposed from above, rather than a truly foundational agreement of the nation. The fourth step is the actual drafting the Constitution. Based on all the accumulated research, the insights from public consultations, and the robust internal discussions, the Assembly begins the meticulous process of outlining the fundamental principles, the detailed structure of government, the precise division of powers among branches, the rights and freedoms of citizens, and all other essential provisions that will form the body of the new Constitution. This is where the abstract ideas take concrete form. Fifth comes review and debate. The initial draft is then subjected to rigorous and often lengthy review and debate within the Constituent Assembly. This is a critical stage where different perspectives, political ideologies, and regional interests are thoroughly considered. Revisions are made based on the extensive feedback received, the ongoing deliberations, and the inevitable compromises required to forge a consensus document.
Lots of back and forth, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Intense debate. Sixth, after myriad revisions and intense debate, is approval and adoption. Once the draft Constitution is finalized to the Assembly's satisfaction, it is presented for formal approval. This can happen either directly by a vote within the Constituent Assembly itself, or, as is increasingly common and often seen as more legitimate, through a national referendum, requiring a certain majority or threshold vote from the entire populace for its adoption. Seventh is the crucial phase of ratification and implementation. After formal approval, the Constitution is officially ratified, formally becoming the supreme law of the land, taking precedence over all other laws.
Making it official.
Exactly. This step involves establishing the necessary governmental institutions as defined by the Constitution, enacting supporting laws that align with its new framework, and ensuring comprehensive compliance with its provisions across all levels of government and society. This is when the blueprint truly becomes the operating system. Finally, the eighth step, which is often drafted concurrently, is to include a clear amendment process. The Constitution should always include a precise mechanism for future amendments.
Planning for the future.
Absolutely. This ensures that the document can accommodate changing societal needs and circumstances over time, balancing its fundamental stability with the necessary adaptability. This process usually requires specific, often stringent procedures and thresholds for making changes, underscoring the enduring nature of the document.
And our sources give us a perfect example of these steps in action, specifically Ghana's 1992 constitution process, which truly brought these theoretical steps to life.
Yes, Ghana's experience closely followed this general outline, demonstrating its practical application. A constitutional review commission was established to lead the effort. There were extensive public consultations conducted nationwide to gather diverse input from citizens across the country.
Right, step 3.
Exactly. This feedback was crucial and directly informed the drafting of the Constitution, which then underwent rigorous review and debate within the Assembly. Finally, it was put to a national referendum for popular approval before its official adoption and comprehensive implementation. This makes the theoretical steps very real and shows how a nation can rebuild and legitimize its foundational legal framework through a deliberate, inclusive process.
After this deep dive, it's abundantly clear that constitutions are far more than just dry legal texts. They are living documents that profoundly shape nations, define individual rights, and establish the very nature of governance. They dictate how power is exercised, how conflicts are resolved, and how a society evolves. So looking at the full picture, why are they truly important from a broader, enduring perspective?
They are absolutely central to the functioning and flourishing of any modern state, and their importance truly cannot be overstated. Tying together the threads from our entire discussion, constitutions are crucial for 8 primary interwoven reasons that impact every facet of a society.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, and perhaps most fundamentally, they are about safeguarding individual rights. They serve as the indispensable cornerstone for protecting the basic rights and freedoms of individuals, ensuring equality under the law and guaranteeing civil liberties like freedom of speech, religion, and privacy from undue government interference. Without these explicit protections, personal liberty is tenuous. Second, they are essential for upholding the rule of law. By establishing that everyone, including the highest government leaders, is unequivocally bound by the law, they create a system of justice where laws are applied consistently, impartially, and predictably. This ensures fundamental fairness and prevents any form of arbitrary rule or selective application of justice, which is vital for public trust and social order. Third, they are vital for restricting government power. Constitutions inherently limit the authority of the government. They clearly outline its specific powers and responsibilities while simultaneously establishing robust checks and balances. This sophisticated design prevents any one branch or leader from gaining too much power, ensuring accountability and preventing the very abuses of authority that led to their creation in many instances.
Keeping power in check.
Exactly. Fourth, they are key to defining government structure. They provide the definitive blueprint for governance, clearly specifying the roles and functions of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. This precise separation of powers ensures a functioning and accountable government where each branch operates independently, yet cooperatively within its defined sphere. Fifth, constitutions are crucial for providing stability and continuity. By laying down fundamental laws and principles that are difficult to change, they create a consistent legal and governance framework that endures. This prevents sudden or arbitrary changes in power or policy, ensuring steadiness through leadership transitions and offering a predictable environment for citizens and institutions alike. Sixth, they serve as a potent mechanism for conflict resolution. By establishing clear legal systems like courts, tribunals, and arbitration procedures, they provide a peaceful, structured, and impartial way to resolve disagreements within society. This promotes justice, maintains social cohesion, and prevents disputes from escalating into violence.
Peaceful resolution.
Critical. Seventh, they are critical for protecting minority rights. Well-designed constitutions often include specific provisions and safeguards designed to prevent the marginalization or discrimination of minority groups. This fosters an inclusive society where diversity is respected and equal opportunities are genuinely afforded to all, ensuring that the will of the majority does not become the tyranny of the majority. Finally, number 8, and most powerfully perhaps, they are instrumental in fostering national identity and unity. Constitutions often embody and reflect the shared values, core principles, and collective history of a country. They articulate a common vision for the nation, helping to unite its citizens under common ideals, transcending individual differences. They create a profound sense of national identity and collective belonging, reinforcing the essential bond between people and their country, and promoting a deep sense of national pride and unity.
Wow.
These 8 points encapsulate the profound, enduring impact a well-designed and consistently upheld constitution can have on a society, moving far beyond being just a legal document to becoming the very bedrock of a nation's stability, justice, identity, and shared future.
That was a truly insightful deep dive into the world of constitutions and constitutionalism. We've gone from their very definition to the nuanced ways they're classified, how they're built, and how they're sustained in practice. It's clear they're not just abstract documents, but vital instruments.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how a document or even a set of deeply ingrained traditions can underpin everything from your basic freedoms to the very stability of a nation. It's a constant reminder that these seemingly abstract legal frameworks are incredibly tangible in their daily impact on every citizen.
And it makes you think. A powerful thought to leave you with. How might your own understanding of your country's constitution or the fundamental principles we've discussed today, like the rule of law or the protection of rights, change the way you view the news, engage in public discourse, or even participate in your own community?
Yeah, what stands out to you from this exploration of the foundational rules of nations? We encourage you to keep exploring, to look at the world through this new informed lens and to understand the living power of these critical documents that shape our societies.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a fresh perspective and a shortcut to being truly well-informed.